Hi, my name is Kelly Smoke, and this is my legal issue presentation. I chose to look at the issue of cultural tolerance specific to schools. Tolerance is recognizing and respecting others' beliefs and practices without sharing in them. In contrast, intolerance is an inability or unwillingness to accept views, beliefs, or behavior that is different from one's own. Where this comes into play in the school setting is often seen in peer to peer interactions, but can also be seen in staff to student interactions and in the establishment of specific rules and regulations at the school level. Discrimination is an unjust treatment of an individual based on their beliefs, attitudes, or behaviors. Cultural intolerance often leads to discrimination. Continued long term cultural insensitivity can lead to systemic deficiencies in tolerance. This can in turn lead to systemic discrimination that may not be intentional but violates the rights of minority students. This can be seen in the school setting through dress codes and through other speech that takes place at the school level that can be discriminatory or at the very least intolerant to other cultures. Due to this, schools or school districts open themselves up to legal action as intolerance can lead to discrimination and the violation of students' rights, specifically under the First and 14th Amendments. This can be seen in some specific examples. One example from a school is that an African American female student was referred to the discipline office for disruption of class due to her head wrap. This was an African head wrap that was representing her culture. Due to the vagueness of the dress code policy, discretion was left to the administrator in how to handle this referral. The administrator told the student not to wear the head wrap again, and if she were to wear the head wrap again, she would be suspended. Where the school gets into trouble here is that there's not a clear distinction in the dress code policy about what designates a wrap versus a headband and other headgear, such as a hat or a beanie. Due to the vagueness of the dress code, it was not relevant or appropriate for a suspension to be threatened for this student wearing the head wrap. Additionally, it is specifically stated that headbands are not permitted, and white students at the school were wearing headbands on a regular basis without any disciplinary action. As such, this particular offense or this particular referral looks very much like straight discrimination. Other examples where schools can get into trouble is by preventing freedom of expression, specifically preventing students from expressing their cultural, religious, or political beliefs through their attire. This could be headgear, this could be shirts, could be bracelets, armbands, necklaces, any number of elements of a wardrobe that a student could wear that represents their cultural beliefs, their religious beliefs, or their political beliefs. There are, of course, precedents that have been set based on the First and 14th Amendments in regards to dress code and speech at the school level and what is permitted for students and where schools are seen as being in violation. The first is the landmark case of Tinker versus Des Moines. In this particular case, students wore black armbands in protest to the Vietnam War. What the Supreme Court determined is that First Amendment rights are not revoked just because you are a student. And this further established the Tinker test based on two key elements. The first is whether substantial disruption to the school environment has taken place, or if there is a clear invasion of the rights of others. These two elements are what courts have looked at in determining whether or not students' First Amendment rights have been violated in subsequent cases. Additionally, in Bethel v. Frazier, the Supreme Court ruled that there were restrictions in what students could say, that they did not have complete free speech in the school, stating that the constitutional rights of students in public school are not automatically coextensive with the rights of adults in other settings. This was in specific relation to a student who used vulgar language when speaking about a student council candidate. The Supreme Court further stated that the freedom to advocate unpopular and controversial views in schools and classrooms must be balanced against society's countervailing interest in teaching students the boundaries of socially appropriate behavior. Where this comes into play with cultural tolerance is what is permitted and allowed at the school level as far as speech between students and what students are permitted to say and or write about their peers in regards to cultural beliefs, political beliefs, or religious beliefs. In DeKalb County, in the DeKalb County School District case, in October of 2012, the Council for the Sikh Coalition filed a complaint with the Department of Justice alleging that a middle school student had been repeatedly targeted with verbal and physical harassment because of his Sikh faith and his wearing of a turban. Investigation through enforcement of Title IV of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 resulted in a May 2013 resolution agreement. This initial agreement required the district to work with a consultant to develop and implement anti-harassment training, immediately implement a safety plan to ensure that the student was safe at school, and provide personnel that the student could meet with that would support them, and should any future instances occur, the student had that person to go to. A second agreement was signed in 2014 when, in this particular agreement, the district had to enhance its abilities to respond to and prevent peer-on-peer harassment, and further provide clear and consistent procedures for reporting, investigating, and responding to incidents. This is an example of a case being intercepted before it went to district or the Supreme Court, where a student's rights were being violated based on the Civil Rights Amendment, and was rectified through other means. Hearn in the United States versus Muskogee Public School District. In this particular case, a young lady was wearing her hijab to school. She wore it at the start of school until the second anniversary of the attacks in New York, September 11th. On this particular date, her teacher requested that she remove her hijab and sent her to the principal's office, where she was subsequently given a 5-day suspension for wearing the hijab. The key findings in this particular case are that, first, the free exercise of her religion and wearing the hijab was violated, and second, in that singling her out due to the wearing of her hijab and to her faith was intentionally discriminatory against her. This is entirely relevant to cultural tolerance, in that our religious views make up a strong element of our culture, and as such, students should be permitted to wear headgear that is in support of their religion or that is in support of their particular cultural beliefs, specifically where it is not prevented or stated against in the dress code. So, a 3-step action plan for addressing dress code issues and the limitation of free exercise and free expression specific to religion, culture, and political beliefs. First, it is imperative that districts and schools review and revise their dress code policies to ensure clear language and understanding is established. In Palmer v. Waxahachie Independent Community School District in 2009, the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals ruled that any language in a dress code that provided for all content to be neutral, for example, the implementation of wearing uniforms, as long as it was consistent and determined to be content neutral, it was appropriate. So all dress codes should be looked at by the standard. Additionally, there should be training for all district employees on the dress code to ensure consistent implementation of the dress code and consequences should the dress code be violated. And thirdly, and probably most importantly, there should be the development and implementation of cultural training awareness on bias and tolerance. It is imperative that teachers and other staff understand what it is to be culturally intolerant versus tolerant, what cultural biases are, and how it is that we as professionals can demonstrate these qualities, and also how we can pass them on to our students. The resources for this presentation came from a variety of areas, including the textbook, um, the Justice Department, and case briefs.